caricature of Carl, but the new Jesus Christ. At other times that he's simply a comedian who looks a bit like Jesus Christ. Whichever it is, he's with us here. Evening to you.
Thanks for the introduction and the enjoyable film.
It's a very, it is a very interesting book, actually. There's a lot in it, isn't there? We've got a lot to talk about. But interesting.
I put a lot into it. I put my heart in it. It's very important to me, the book, Evan.
And you read Thomas Piketty, or big chunks of Thomas Piketty, and I can tell you a lot of people who bought that book and didn't...
He don't make it easy, does he, Piketty?
He doesn't. What was funny was actually out of that interview last year, where you said you didn't vote, you were accused, and are still being accused, by people, of turning young people off politics, not getting them engaged. And ironically, you've actually probably engaged more young people in thinking about these issues than any politician who votes, right? I mean, I've had texts today from people...
Except, Evan, I don't see the irony in that, because my point was don't vote, become apathetic, do nothing. My point was become engaged in procedures that will have an impact, creative, direct action. So I think it's clear from the book, and clear for anyone who doesn't want to pursue the idea of a kind of nihilistic, apathetic argument deliberately to diffuse it, that what I'm saying is that people must become involved in their own political destiny.
Yeah. Now, look, for people who haven't read the book or who haven't seen the previous interviews or haven't followed this, let's just go through some of the things, the enemies in the book. Let's just go through them. So who don't you like? What are the big enemies?
You mean, what do I think are the challenges we face?
Who are the objects of your...
It's not objects-based, because I'm trying not to approach this in a negative way. I've just come from Parliament Square, or Tarpaulin Square, as it's become known by the successful Occupy movement, who are currently there, who are dealing with the police politely and lovingly. And this is a new kind of political movement, and precisely the kind of political movement that we want to encourage, where people are disillusioned with traditional, conventional politics that doesn't represent us, the ordinary people, that might be fun for those of us that work in media to chat about, or people with columns, or people with loads of money and big corporations. But for ordinary British people, they don't feel that they're being represented. No one wants the NHS dismantled. My mate Lee, who's a fireman in Grays, who's like the fire brigade union, can't get no coverage in the media, who are facing terrible cuts, who can no longer do their jobs healthily, safely and effectively. These are the kind of people that we're addressing. And it needs to be through creative direct action, because the apparatus for ordinary people to be engaged politically simply doesn't exist. And that's what came up in my last interview with your predecessor, Jeremy, there, and which is more and more prevalent as I've been going on this journey of learning and education from the people that are engaged.
OK, look, so let's just give us a couple of things, obvious things that you would do about it.
Well, firstly, what I would suggest is, I took great inspiration from the Focus E15 mums who were turfed out of their homes by Newham Council that are indifferent to their plight, and organised themselves creatively and opposed that, and through that action they won 40 council homes for homeless people in the borough through creative direct action. I would draw your attention to the New Era estate in Hoxton, where, like many Londoners and many people in our country, they're facing terrifying situation around housing, and again they're organising.
Russell, this is very, very piecemeal, because you've got a much bigger view of how societies have changed in this book than one little group doing something here.
But Evan, this is what you misunderstand. Evan, what you misunderstand, mate, like what a lot of people in your line of work misunderstand is that we don't want pedagogic figures coming in and didactically shouting at us. We want to organise ourselves, as is happening on the New Era estate. The time where people trust politicians, that's over. That era has passed. Now, I'm not suggesting they start trusting me, an entertainer. I'm a comedian who looks like Jesus. That's a much closer description. But I can participate by amplifying what may seem like piecemeal causes to you. But let me tell you, to the people on the New Era house... No, let me finish, mate, let me finish. To the people on the New Era estate who are losing their homes, so the brother of the richest Tory MP in this country, Richard Benyon, Edward Benyon...
Well, we don't know. He's not here to justify himself.
Well, thank God, mate. Because otherwise I wouldn't be. Because let me tell you, they've got enough of a voice. The BBC gives enough of a voice to conventional wisdom. I'm here to give a voice to ordinary people like that. And their struggle, let me tell you, Evan, it don't seem piecemeal to them, because they're being faced with losing their homes, so men like Edward Benyon can make yet more profit. To them, it's not piecemeal. That's how the BBC missed the mark. You don't know what ordinary people care about. People are losing their jobs, they're losing their services, they're losing their homes, and we're tired, and there's no one to represent us, mate. There's no one to represent us. That's the kind of thing you should be covering on your show. We should be looking to the truth to do that.
We go through some
news you can trust.
Can we look at specifics?
Because sometimes, tell me what you want to know.
I think sometimes you can make generalities, right? And that you can get away with a lot.
Well, I think let's talk about specifics. That in itself was a generality.
Let's look at this one.
Or a
in the book,
generalisation.
you say in the book, let's kill General Motors. Let's take it back from its shareholders, scribble out the name and the logo, and let's use its resources for something more valuable.
Now, Evan, I hope you're not going to use this opportunity for you, an Oxford-educated economist, to come on the TV and be rude to me.
I'm not being rude. An
autodidact, a self-educated man, for simply trying to suggest that there might be an alternative to corporate hegemony, that there might be an alternative to our governments bending over for the benefit of big corporations.
I want to raise this.
That's what ordinary people care about, mate. It's affecting ordinary people's lives. I don't know if it's affecting the places you hang out and where you drink.
Let me speak.
Tell me what you need to know.
Yeah. There may be... I mean, you're very good in this book.
Thanks.
And you're going to get a lot of praise for the way you document...
I don't want praise, I want change.
You're going to get a lot of praise
change. Great,
for identifying a lot that people don't like about society at the moment. It's very easy to spot things that are wrong with society at the moment, right?
Absolutely.
We have the bejeweled bus you talk about. 85 people in the world who have as much as 55 billion.
What's your point, Evan? What's your point, mate?
Is,
come on,
you
sharpen up, you're in big shoes.
You propose another system, and it might be that your system is better, or it might be that you haven't had the imagination to think about the problems that the other system has. So I'm trying to get into a detail here, which you want to take...
I lack imagination? That's your accusation. What's the problem with my imagination?
I want to take an example of something you say.
Take the example.
Take General Motors from its shareholders.
Absolutely.
Do you know who owns it? The United Auto Workers Union owns a chunk of it. The Canadian government owns a chunk of it. You take it from them and they're
Evan, are you seriously telling me that the corporate world, companies like Monsanto and Pfizer, are operating on behalf of us, ordinary people? Is that your argument? Are you coming on Newsnight, a great British institution, to say that corporations like Vodafone, Amazon, Google, who don't pay their tax in this country, who are aided and assisted by our government, while people fill the squares arrested for possessing tarpaulin so they can peacefully protest, you want to say that corporates are getting a rough ride?
I don't say they're getting a rough ride.
Look, you've got a proper job.
I want to ask you...
Now, why don't you answer some questions?
I want to ask what you propose that people who own General Motors should do when you have taken it
I don't want to follow you down blind alleys about silly administrative quibbles. Let me be absolutely clear. I don't trust politicians. No one does. I don't trust the corporations in this country that you inadvertently work for every time you take this line with me. What I'm saying is that people can run their own workplaces, people can run their own communities. The people of this country have been patronised enough, mate, and let's not do it in this interview.
You have another one. I'm not patronising anybody.
Good.
You say you want General Motors to stop making cars that break down in a few years.
Mate, you carry
so they can sell more of them. Well, do you really believe that cars are made to break down?
What, built-in obsolescence? Yeah, I believe in built-in obsolescence, don't you?
Well, I tell you what, when I was a kid,
people make deliberately exploit. Any one of us,
we went on holiday. We could barely guarantee to get
back again. You're much more tactile than the Jeremy geezer. He hated it when I touched his legs.
Because the cars were so unreliable, they've become much more reliable. And I sort of think the companies that made obsolescent cars went out of business.
You think that, do you?
Well, I honestly think that. I posit that as at least a theory of capitalism that might happen.
I'm not going to sit here with you. I know you know that capitalism isn't working. I think
it's got a lot of flaws.
That a system that requires quantitative easing to hold it together, while energy companies are subsidised by our taxes, while renewable energies are ignored. I know you can't support that system, Evan. I know you're mates with CEOs and big business
Let me bring up a graph.
I don't want to look at a graph, mate. I ain't got time for a bloody graph. Well, this is what I want to take this opportunity to talk to the people of this country and tell them to get involved in creative direct action. That's a lovely graph.
It goes back to 1862.
Mate. This is the kind of stuff that people like you use to confuse people like us. I've got a graph, mate.
I'm not trying to confuse you.
You've not just come from the New Era state where Boris Johnson, who takes 5 times more meetings a year with bankers than he does ordinary people. We've got a graph. Everything's tidy.
Trying to just take you seriously, and I'm really
okay.
Trying.
Well, tell me what you want to do with the graph.
It shows real wages and how people's wages have gone up over the last 150 years.
Do you ever go
and it's
outside?
terrible. Just look at the right-hand side. I'm on your side here. Look on the right-hand side. Look how far it goes down.
Sure.
Well below zero. That's the worst it's been for the last 150 years.
Sure.
Right? Go back over the previous bits, though.
Don't talk to me like that, mate.
Wages have been going up all the time. Now, if I gave you a button here, You can push that button and get rid of that down bit at the very end.
Evan, I'm not
But you get rid of a lot of the up bits.
What is your point?
My point is that revolutions sometimes have good effects, but they also wipe out more than they intended.
Thank you. You could have said that in 5 seconds without the daft graph.
Well, I think the graph is very interesting.
Here's my point, is the systems we have at the moment aren't going to change within themselves because those systems are working for precisely the function they're intended to. They work for... They enhance the power and profits of elites. They support the rights of corporations. At a time where the TTIP agreement's being pushed through in Europe, I think we have to be more aware than ever of the disempowerment of ordinary British people. We have to support localised, creative, direct action movements.
Are you going to overthrow John Lewis?
What is your question? Mate,
I'm saying you're going to overthrow John Lewis.
Look, let me tell you very clearly...
Because it's easy to say I want to overthrow the banks, but are you going to overthrow John Lewis? That's
I'll tell you... No, it's not a hard question, mate. It's not a hard question for me, sat in front of this lovely graphic that you've put together there of me as Che Guevara, a complex figure, let's face it, a man who was occasionally brutal. Look, no, mate, what I'm suggesting is that I, as a comedian, as an entertainer, can use my voice to amplify people pursuing just causes. People like the Fire Brigade Union, doing fantastic work. People like the ladies on the New Era estate. People like the Focus E15 mums. If there's someone that has a campaign to overthrow John Lewis for some reason, which I believe that is to a degree collectivised and gives its workers representation on the board, if someone wants that, then perhaps I'll support them.
Just want to ask one other one, which I think people will be surprised at. Sure. In the book, you refer to the destruction of the Twin Towers in New York, 9/11, as what some people say looked like a controlled explosion. And one might read that as you giving some credence to conspiracy theories.
You can read the book in whatever manner you would like to.
Do you believe that the Twin Towers were destroyed by forces of the American government or similar?
I think it's interesting that at this time where we have so little trust in our political figures, where ordinary people have so little trust in their media, that we have to remain open-minded to any kind of possibility. I don't know. I think you're correct. Do you trust the American government? Do you trust the British government? I mean,
it's not. My views aren't really important at this point, but I think most people regard it as ridiculous to suggest anything other than the Al-Qaeda destroyed those buildings.
Well, what I do think is very interesting is the relationship that the Bush family have had for a long time with the Bin Laden family. What I do think is interesting is that the way that even the BBC reports events in Ottawa to subtly build an anti-Islamic narrative. I think that's very interesting. I think it's interesting the way these tragic events are used to enforce further controls on us. What's this Snoopers Charter? Yeah, I think it's fascinating, mate, that the way that the media works in conjunction with big business and with the government where ordinary people
but you're
feel
not
like
suggesting the Bush family were involved in the destruction of 9/11.
I don't want to talk about daft conspiracy theories here on Newsnight, mate. I'm here to talk very clearly about ordinary people creatively becoming engaged with direct action.
The Scottish vote, what did you think of that? Because that did seem to energise people.
It certainly did. I thought that shows...
Would you have voted in that referendum?
Yeah, I would have voted yes, but I wouldn't have been surprised if things hadn't significantly altered. I think that when democracy is appealing, when democracy appears to have an impact, then people are willing to get engaged.
And the Hong Kong protests, which of course are people trying to get a vote, which you've been a little bit reluctant to encourage.
What I think is interesting about Hong Kong, mate, is that the protesters in Hong Kong are allowed sleeping bags under a communist Chinese government, and the protesters in Parliament Square right now can't have tarpaulin, can't have sleeping bags, where Boris Johnson, the mayor, and your mate, because I've seen your interview with you cozying up to him, where he is putting private security firms in control of our police force, where protesters there aren't allowed to have tents.
We've only got half a minute left. I'm not going to ask whether you're going to vote next year, but I do want to ask you this. Tell me, why don't you stand next year?
Well, because...
Or are you still... are you thinking
I'm very
you might?
happy to amplify the thousands, millions of people who are dissatisfied with the current regime, that are dissatisfied with media,
you could stand,
that are dissatisfied...
You could stand, they might vote for you. Then you'd know that the people you say you're speaking for, the people you say you're speaking for, actually like what you're saying.
I think I've been very clear that I have very little trust in this system, and I think my energies and efforts are best spent supporting people who are working very hard and doing great work in important issues like housing and having some control over their own work. People on zero-hour contract. What I want to do, mate, is support people who know what they're doing.
I don't know
provide
whether you trust
amplification.
The people. You don't trust
I
the
trust
people.
No, I trust
because
people.
You say in the book about the Swiss voting the wrong way in a referendum. You say they've been manipulated.
I say that the media play a vital role in managing the outcome of referendums, as we saw in Scotland, how the BBC shamefully supported the no vote, how the BBC shamefully fell in line with Cameron, Clegg and Miliband.
So much airtime to you.
I'm very glad.
We've
Thank you.
rectified a lot
Watch
of
the
those
truths, true
accusations.
news you can trust. Newsnight.
Is all we have time for.
We've
Good
got
night.
plenty of time. There's plenty of time. Good luck.